Welcome to Burn the Ship, the podcast where we connect entrepreneurs and professionals to help you go all in on your business. I'm your host, Ezra Brown, and without further ado, I'm gonna let my guest introduce herself.
Hey man, thanks Ezra for having me. I'm really excited. I love the podcast. I love the branding. I love what you guys are about. So my name is Jay Soileau. I am married and have a couple kids and live in South Carolina, a little town of Batesburg, South Carolina. I'm the owner of StrongBody Fitness, the owner of Dream Funds, and also the author of Conquer Me, and then also the Conquer Me coaching program.
Man, that's awesome. So kind of give us a story, kind of where did this all start? How did this all come about? How'd you hop into the fitness industry and then hop in that little bit of that authoring a book for us?
Yeah, man. So I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. When I was younger, unfortunately, I misdirected that and got into some things that I should not have gotten into. Which everything happens for me, right? To me, not to me. So I gained a lot of insight through the things that I went through as a younger guy, and was able to kind of later redirect that energy, that entrepreneurial energy, into starting my gym, and a few other businesses. Um, but yeah, so the company's been in business for about a decade. And through that, I really have had the opportunity to work closely with a lot of folks in fitness, but then also in the mental space, right? And just mental health, and working with people through their self-limiting beliefs and things that are kind of keeping them stuck, similar to what I went through in my journey. So that's where the book came from, is having these higher level conversations, helping people identify the stories that are holding them back and kind of reframe and break through those things. Eventually I saw a need for a coaching program and even a book. So the book is almost ready. It's in the very final editing stages. So I've got a few little final touches to do with that. I'm thinking the next 4 weeks it'll be released.
That's awesome, man. So I can really relate to that. Being an ex-college athlete. I played 5 years of college baseball, so I can really attest to that mental side, not kind of really knowing your value or kind of feeling disvalued whenever you are valued, or
Yeah.
not really going all in on yourself because you kind of that self-doubt, and I feel like the fitness definitely helped that out a ton, in my earlier years of college, just because I'd never been in the gym. I'd never done any of those things. So I can appreciate that, what you're doing. But kind of, yeah, give us that story. What's that picture look like? What's your day to day, and kind of what's been the day to day of the gym for the last two decades?
Yeah. So we basically started as so I have a background in managing gyms first, and had some experience with that. Was managing a gym for a while. It wasn't really going where I wanted it to go. I did something totally unrelated, but in this town, I just saw a need for group training. Right. This was like when the CrossFit thing was getting really big and hyped up. And I'm like, man, there's just something about a community of people working out together. I really want to do this in my small town. So that's what we did. We started a boot camp. We grew that boot camp. It was very bootstrapped. I mean, in fact, I share this story a lot, but I was in the middle of a bankruptcy when we started our business. So I was coming out of a very severe Adderall addiction that almost took my life, and was kind of working my way out of that. It's a long story, but basically felt like the Lord put it on my heart to start a fitness business. I had no idea what that was going to look like or where the resources would come from. So basically, just adopted a philosophy of take the next step and have the next conversation, which led into eventually meeting some people and making some contacts and securing some funds and finding a location and growing the business. So it's been a very bootstrapped, like, nose to the grind type of thing. But now we're in a great spot. We've got an amazing team. So now I'm more focused on leading the team, implementing systems, tightening things up, and really running a business, which is exciting.
Man, that's super, super, super awesome, man. So kind of y'all doing like you got a full service gym, or you kind of just doing or full service gym,
Yep.
CrossFit, or kind of like your 24-hour fitness where you got all the machine work you need, or is it all free weighted, the fun
Yeah,
stuff as I
yeah.
say it.
So it started out in a big, huge car service department. It's like these big roll-up doors, kind of the CrossFit style thing that you see.
Right.
And we were doing boot camp, very CrossFit-esque. Boot camp, CrossFit, kind of that whole thing. Well, eventually there's an Anytime Fitness that I used to manage here in town. And that when COVID hit, they unfortunately went out of business. And so I basically I bought that business, and then I also leased the space next to that business and moved my business in there. So now when we did that, we totally changed our model. So we went from large group training, which was on average 15, 20 people in a session, down to semi-private training, which is a max of 6, individual programming, one coach, much different kind of feel. It's more like personal training as
Right.
opposed to a big group of people kind of doing all the same stuff. And it was a great shift. So now we've got both. You walk in, you've got a front desk, you go right for your more traditional gym, like you would, it's got machines and cardio stuff and whatever. That's a 24-hour facility. And then you go left for our training studio. We've got that set up to accommodate 6 people with stations and all that stuff.
I got you. How many trainers you got on staff?
So we have a staff of 8 right now, including trainers, client success manager, operations manager, 2 main trainers, and a couple fill-ins. Got an intern. So we got a full squad, man.
That's awesome, man. I got you. You do any training yourself, or you just in there working out, getting the body right?
Yeah, so not much anymore. So I do run the coaching program, which is basically for people who want more than fitness,
Right.
right? I started this thing going, hey, you know what? We've got problems to solve. These people aren't happy with their weight. They're not happy with their fitness. We need to sell fitness, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we did that, and that's great. And it's a good first step for a lot of people. It's the gateway drug to change, really. Like
1000%. Yeah.
yeah, like you start working out, all of a sudden you're feeling better, you're seeing new possibilities, your eyes are kind of, you wake up a little bit and you realize, whoa, there's more to life and than what I'm, limiting myself to by not being in shape.
Right.
Eventually people want to have higher level conversations and they need it. It's like, okay, we got to start thinking about psychology and behavioral change and some of these things that if we don't fix this, you're going to lose and gain the same 20 pounds over and over and over again. So that's what I do is I work with executives. I work with people who are kind of at that stage where they're like, man, I really want to go deeper. And that's where I spend most of my time in the coaching program and also with the podcast. I have a
Right.
podcast as well that I really enjoy doing. So
Really, that's super awesome. I have to go check it out. I'm sure Bailey's done a bunch of research on it because he's a content guru. But yeah, I'm definitely got to check that out. But no, where would you find that?
So it's Conquer Me
Uh-huh.
is the podcast,
Okay.
and it's anywhere you can find podcasts. So Spotify,
Cool.
Apple, wherever. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, y'all go check him out. That's definitely worth giving a look out to, especially if you're in that fitness world. But no, I can definitely appreciate that, especially because as they say, you can't just quit something. You have to replace it with something. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? To kind of keep that going. And, especially with people that struggle in that body dysmorphia, I guess you would say. It
Yep.
almost takes that fog out of life that when you're not working out. Because I see that now because I retired in May from playing. So.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
haven't,
Nice.
I haven't touched a weight since May.
Right.
And I can tell
That's
you,
how it goes,
I
man.
do feel a lot different now than I did a year ago. Right now, I can tell you that for sure.
Yeah.
I definitely need to get back into the gym. I think about it actually. It's in the back of my mind. It's like that little dude on your shoulder sits there and
Right.
tells me all the time, like, you need to get your butt back in the gym. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I think about it all the time. But it definitely does give you some type of mental clarity. But it also gives you kind of like that. I don't know. It's just more of a walk around like shoulders roll back a little bit more.
Yep.
Male or female. I believe it's both. You walk out your chest a little bit more, and you walk in like you're 10 feet tall everywhere, no matter what.
Oh,
Which is
and
kind of
that
the
spills
best part.
over, man. Yeah, that spills over into everything. People don't realize like if you want to whatever the issue is, right? Whether you're struggling in your marriage or you can't get your finances right or whatever thing that seems totally unrelated to fitness. My advice is go get in the best shape of your life and all of that stuff will iron itself out. And
Right.
it's so true. It's like if you can develop the discipline to suffer a little bit, to have some delayed gratification, to go all in on your fitness, then you have that mental resiliency to pour into those other areas. And it's like clockwork, man. It's like it shows up in your job, it shows up in your marriage, it shows up everywhere. So again, it's the gateway, it's the foundation for change. But if you're not working on all these other things, you'll just self-sabotage it every time. You'll have a
Yeah.
little progress and then you'll ruin it. So
Yeah.
there's a lot that goes into it, man. I started like a lot of people do in the fitness space where it's like, hey, let's just do some workouts. Well, we work out with rowers. Well, we work out with, whatever. And we do Pilates and we do nothing wrong with any of that.
Right.
It's just a mechanism for moving your body. Like you can do that however you want to do that, but
Mm-hmm.
ultimately sustainable results. Yeah, it starts with a mindset.
Yeah, I can, and yeah, I agree. There ain't nothing false in that statement right there, brother. I can tell you that because I mean, it really does translate into your life. You know, kind of everything is what you get into, and if you don't put nothing into the temple, this is kind of this is the car that drives you around every day. You know,
That's it, man.
if you don't feed it, what's it gonna do? It might give out on you. You know what I mean? And we're trying to. I don't know about you guys, but I love my life. I wanna stretch it out as long as possible. So I definitely need to turn that leaf back over and get back into it. You know, but it's definitely a different setting than it's been for me, especially
Yeah.
because it went from being an athletic based training to where I wasn't really, wasn't training as much for, you know, muscle definition, none of these things. I was training
Right.
for, for competition, as to where now it's more training for personal, which is a
Yep.
little different. I think that's what kept that transition out. And I feel like a lot of people relate to that very well, because think about it, how many athletes that immediately they get done and guess what they do? They're sitting on the couch eating cheeseburgers like they were, but
Oh, for sure,
they ain't
man.
burning it
For
off
sure.
anywhere. They're
Yeah,
just
you
out
don't
there,
have anything to train for anymore, right?
yeah.
So that's
Next thing you know, you're 30 with titties.
right, right, exactly. And then you
So
say it's the dad bod, and you're all proud of it. Like, no,
it
that's unacceptable, man. I mean, that's
exactly, and then not
responsible. Yeah,
and social media makes it acceptable now in today's day and age. So and that's kind of ruining people's mind. I feel like that's the rat poison Nick Saban talks about, and in football,
yep,
but use it in a life sense. I feel like that's kind of the rat poison. That don't shouldn't allow mediocrity to be the goal of somebody's life anymore.
100%, man.
But
Couldn't agree more.
so kind of tell us what did you do really good when you first started in business? What were you what was kind of like your strong suit in the
Yeah,
entrepreneur space?
so I think if anything, I did everything wrong. I'll just say that. I made all the mistakes. I took on way too much debt. I didn't market right. Like everything was just a mess because I didn't come from a background of entrepreneurship, like at least not legal entrepreneurship. And I didn't really have a lot of financial literacy in my life or education or any of that. So like I'm this dude who has a dream and thinks he could maybe make this work and is already in the worst financial shape you could possibly be in. So I'm just like, hey, this is the time. Let's go for it. So I did a lot of things wrong. What I think I did really well, though, was build relationships. I am a relationship guy, right? And so when I started a fitness business, it's because it was so tied to relationships. Like I love connecting with people, building relationships, and helping them go from point A to point B. And I think that came across in my work. So like in the beginning, I did all the sessions, I did all the training, I did all the like I was the guy that like most startups, are. We do everything for everybody all the time until we either burn out and burn the ship and burn the whole thing down, or we start hiring and asking for help. So
Absolutely.
I think for me, what really allowed me to grow was like I already had some pre-established relationships, and then I really just nurtured those and continue to grow them in our town. So small town, 5,000 people. I stay very well connected here. I'm very involved in a lot of the organizations and different things, and I think that helped me.
Right. You born and raised in that town?
No,
Okay.
we've been
Okay.
here for we've been here for about as long as I've had the gym, so a little over 10 years.
Awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah,
Yep.
super small towns like that, they'll back you, especially if you build those relationships. So there's one thing, that I feel like people don't lean on enough is kind of the people around you that are already surrounding, around you. As long as even if you burnt some bridge down in high school, you go back in entrepreneurship at 30, they might think you're still the same knucklehead till they sit down and talk to you, but that's just because we're
Right.
people. We read books by the cover until we sit down and start talking to them. You know what I mean? You gotta just like that book, that Twilight book, or that
Yep.
book about sales for dummies. You got to open it to really read what's in it,
That's
just
it,
to
man.
kind of get the information out of it. You don't know what you're going to get until you sit down and meet somebody,
No
because
doubt.
me and you could come from two different backgrounds, which I don't think we do very much at all. I think we come from very similar one, but I believe that you can find common things with every person you sit down with, no matter the walk of life, no matter the demographic. I believe that all of us are a lot more similar than we think we are.
Yeah, if you allow that to happen.
Exactly. And I believe that is one of the things that really does help people in the business world and in entrepreneurship is relationships and then asking for help. I feel like that's something that's really hard for people to do, especially we're men. So that's the last thing we're going to try and do is ask for that. You
Right.
know, it,
It's yeah, it's super lonely, man. We talk about this with other gym owners and just business people in general. Like, and that's why I'm leaning so heavily into coaching and masterminds and things like that. Is man, it's super lonely, and you think that like you're the only one that has having these problems, and you're the only one under this stress, and you're the only one worried about payroll, and you're like, and no one else around you understands.
mm-hmm.
Like, I used to think that everyone should own a business, and I would say like, you need to start a business. You need to start a business. Well, after starting a business and multiple at this point and having employees and all that type of thing, it's like, no, 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 not everyone's cut out for this. Like, you basically are signing up to get your ass kicked repeatedly for sometimes decades
Right.
before things even start to make sense. So it's like, no, not everybody's cut out for that. It is very lonely. It's difficult. Now it's rewarding. I wouldn't have it any other way, but it's certainly a lot more than what people think. And so you get to a place where you're super vulnerable, and either you use the logic and the skills that got you where you are to try to get where you want to go, which never works, or you reach out and you start educating yourself, asking for help, joining masterminds, hiring coaches, going through a process of evolution to get more information, right, and knowledge,
Absolutely.
uh, so that you can further yourself. So yeah, definitely agree with you on that, man.
And that is one thing too, is, that you brought up, segue me into another one for you, is kind of, super successful people, you know what they like to do? They love to help people
Yep.
that want to go. You know what I mean? They can tell who wants to put the gas in the car to go, but they can tell who also just wants to run off fumes and coast as long as they can. So they're not going to put all into you. But if you can find somebody successful and have a good conversation with them, I believe that 90% of them want to help because they want us to experience the same successes that they've had.
Yep.
It's not something that they try to gatekeep from people. It's not anything gatekeeping. They're just like hard work, and everybody says hard work, dedication. You would think that people would start to really buy into that at this point in time, now that it's all over media where you can really see it, as opposed to where you just seen it on TV, or you seen Ben Affleck or somebody on TV going like, I've got here from hard work and dedication, because
Right.
sometimes it is right time at the, you're at the right place at the right time. But I would say 95% of the time it's not that way. It's hard work, dedication gets you to where you want to go, and asking the right people and having the right conversations, which some people, they also, it's, you don't know where to start with that, kind of where,
Right.
how did you know, where did you know kind of where to start with that?
Yes, I think I've always been open to coaching and mentorship. So to back up a little bit with my story, I got into a lot of trouble, not to bore you with the whole thing, but basically got into a lot of trouble when I was younger, drugs, alcohol, a lot of stuff. I had 3 felony drug charges by the time I was 16. I was sentenced juvenile life. Went away, did some jail time, rehabs, halfway houses, all this type of stuff, right? I was jacked, man. Like my mind was so screwed up from the way that I was raised and the things that I saw, and I was just a product of my environment. I didn't I knew what was right and wrong, but it just felt right to be able to do those things and to do,
Thousand
because
percent.
everybody else in my circle was doing those things, right? So when I finally woke up and like I'm getting ready to be finished with all of these things that I had to do to basically get these things off my record, and I am starting my life really for the first time. I'm like, man, there's a huge delta. Like there's a massive deficit in where I am now and where I want to be. I just missed high school. And I started drugs in middle school. I mean, by the time I was 10, I was smoking weed daily, like all these things. So I missed a lot of school. I missed a lot of experience. I missed a lot of opportunity to build skills that I would need later in life. So when I kind of wake up, I'm like, all right, I still have big dreams. I still have big aspirations. I still feel like I'm called to do something great. But man, I don't even know, like, I'm in trouble. Like, I don't even have the basic skills, right?
Right.
So I immediately felt the need to start looking for coaches and asking for help. And I did that. I picked up a book. I started reading right away. I read Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad, game changer for me. If you haven't read that book and you're have any aspirations to be in business, you need to read that book.
Definitely one I'll keep in there.
Yeah, so I read that and it's like, holy shit, like this is a total game changer for me. So then I'm like, okay, you don't know what you don't know, right? And so I'm like, there's a lot of things that I don't know about business and personal development. I got contacted by a guy in a mall from a network marketing company. And it was like one of these things where, hey, man, if you sign up and you sign, the whole deal, like if you sign up 3 of your friends, you could be rich. Well, again, knowing nothing about business, nothing about these types of things, I'm like, okay, it's a business opportunity, right? So I go join this thing. And for like 5 years, I'm in this thing and I'm reading every book and listening to every audio. And like, I'm all in on personal development. Well, part of that system is you're being mentored, you have a
Right.
coach, right? And so, like, that was just out of the gate ingrained in me. I'm like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I need a coach. I'm not going to take on any endeavor in any area of my life without cheating by grabbing the knowledge and experience from someone that's already been down the path that I'm trying to go. And so I've always had a coach from the day that I started I mean, till now, like I'm always in a mastermind, I'm always in a coach, and I just look for people who are 10 years ahead of me. That's kind of how I gauge it. I'm like, all right, who out there has what I want to have? Like, and they could shortcut me by a decade
Right.
by giving the knowledge and insight that they have. And I hire those people. And I've spent tens of thousands, if not hundreds at this point, absurd amount of money on mastermind coaches, courses, those types of things to help me level up.
Right. And that's, that's very, very different, you know what I mean? Because this a lot of people, it takes a long time for them to realize they need those things. Some people make it 20 years in business and realize that Joe's Plumbing Company, I'm really good at plumbing, but what about marketing, advertising, or what about
Right.
what about my front end side of what about the customer service, all these things, that, and it takes them forever. They're like, why haven't I made it, to where this big company is? Well, that big guy may have went and done those things to get there faster than you, and you just never gave them the time to go have that conversation.
Right.
Because, it's really easy for people, especially all of us, me day to day, probably you coming to this every once in a while, but, we're busy, but we're never that busy.
Yep.
You know what I mean? We can always clear a little bit of time. If it means that much to you, you can definitely clear some time to get it, get it taken care of. And I feel like a lot of people definitely in business don't do that, But people are also, business owners. Not every business owner is a good business owner, in which that's always how it goes. And we're all different from, case to case. There's a good thing there's a couple billion of us on the earth.
That's right. No doubt.
But, what was the one thing that you weren't real good at when you first started? Like the one thing that you knew that you had to, like it was the end all be all of you needed help immediately.
Yeah, so it was asking for help. It was building a team. I waited too long to build a team. I didn't know how to lead a team. I didn't even know how to hire. I didn't know how to structure pay. I didn't know like any of those things, right? It was like I'm the grinder. This is my vision. This is my thing. I'm gonna go do this. I'm gonna build this. Get out of my way, and that's all fine and good until it's not. I had a family. I had a daughter on the way. Like all these things, and I'm just burning the candle at both ends. And so for me, I really struggled with asking for help and hiring the right people. I hired people, but I didn't know how to hire the right people. I didn't know how to live by core values and run a business by a mission and core values, which today it's exactly how we run the business. We measure every decision against those core values. And if it doesn't align, well then it doesn't make sense. Right? So that's stuff that you learn over time. But yeah, I waited way too long. I spent way too much money trying to like get the business going on my efforts. And then eventually it got to the point where I'm like, all right, either I'm going to abandon this because I'm growing resentful towards it, or I'm going to start hiring people.
Right.
And I started bringing those people on board. Eventually I went through a couple that didn't work out. And then, of course, the first two ended up being my direct competitors. And I'm like, all right, learn from that. Need to have non-competes involved. Like all these things, you just you kind of figure out, which the reason why most small businesses fail is any of those things could have taken me out. When I got the tax bill for 12 grand and I'm like, I don't have 12 grand. I didn't know I
Right.
was going to get a tax bill for 12 grand. Like, where did that come from? Now I got to go figure out how to find 12 grand. So like there's things along the way that for many people, it will take them out, and it could have easily taken me out. I just happened to be fortunate enough at this point to still be standing with a lot of lessons under my belt at this point and still learning every day. But yeah, I mean that's it, man. Like I said, I did everything wrong. But if I had to highlight one thing, it was like now I know when I start a new company before, and I'm just in the middle of launching a new financial services company now, I'm already delegating things. Like I'm already building a team around what's going to have to happen so that I'm not the guy.
Right.
So,
Because
so let's nail it down to that. The biggest mistake I made starting this was being the guy
you had to take the
for
fall for
everything,
everything.
which
Yeah.
made it very difficult
Right. And
for
and
everything, man.
that's what
It
helps.
is very, it was very difficult to back away at that point.
Because this helped you out a ton. I can tell, just going into this new endeavor, you've already, 10 years ago when you started this experience, you're like, yeah, I'm not doing this again. I understand. I understand where I messed up. I'm going to do that, man. And that's super awesome to kind of see how that's coming full circle for you, man. That's super awesome. Because I'm just now getting through, getting into that field where I've been in the real world now since May. So it's all starting to
Right?
really, really get it now. I feel like, and then I'll get
Yep.
kicked in the neck somewhere here in the next couple weeks. I'm sure it'd knock me back down to normal,
Oh
back
yeah.
to regular,
Coming.
back back to asking everybody. But kind of what's been your favorite part of the journey?
I think it's the best part is about business ownership and entrepreneurship is who you're becoming along the way, right? Like it's not, hey, when I get this business with this many clients and this much revenue and this much profit, like all those things are cool, but it's the man that I've had to become in order to sustain the business for nearly a decade. And it's a totally different man than I was when I first started the business.
That's awesome.
Right. So it is business ownership is the ultimate personal development program. If you want to get better, if you want to challenge everything about your being, then go start a business. Put everything on the line, risk it all. Take everything you've got and throw it in there and hope it all works out. And yeah, you'll transform as a person.
That's awesome. Then kind of I don't want to go too much into your book too much just because it hadn't dropped yet, but I want to hear a little bit, kind of what made you go in and write, because I'm sure it's got the coaching aspect, but it's probably got your personal, your personal testimony to it,
Yeah.
but kind of, what made you want to hop in there and write? Because you're already doing the coaching, but that's a different, different avenue.
Yeah. Yeah, so I really want to get into speaking. I feel called to use my story and as leverage to help other people, and that's a big piece of it. The book does tell a lot about my story. It gets into kind of the evolution of how I got to where I am today, and it's just the principles that I followed to get there. So it's a lot of mindset stuff, right? A lot of information and kind of insight into the things that I struggled with mentally and had to overcome, the self-limiting beliefs, the stories, all those things. But then it goes deep into some very practical things like time management. Most entrepreneurial spirited people are scatterbrains. We're all over the place. We've got all these big ideas. We're visionaries. We could do this and I could do that and I could start this and then we can go do that. And while all that's awesome, if you can't contain that and you can't implement that, well, it's just going to cause you to have chronic overwhelm and you're going to hate your life. You're going to be constantly burned out, right? So these are some things that I learned about, like, how do I manage a quote unquote ADD, ADHD brain to be able to have a high level of output and stay on track with all those things. So I get into all of that. It's really kind of a like, leaders need to read it. People who are looking to level up their game need to read it. It's great for business people. Uh, and I think what it'll do ultimately is just give me the whole idea behind the book of conquer me, or the whole message is that we are the obstacle, right? You can do whatever you want to do as long as you're willing to face you and overcome you, because it's you. It's not the government. It's not the weather. It's not, where you grew up or whether you're black or whether you're white or whatever, anything in between. It's you. It's your own stories. It's your own limiting beliefs. It's your unwillingness to do the work. And so that's the whole message. And my hope is that this will get in people's hands and allow them to break past some of those thoughts, and then also get me in a position where I have a bigger audience from stage, help me grow the podcast, those types of things. So
1,000%, man. That's awesome. That is super awesome. You got a
thanks.
unique perspective, man. Not many can formulate and kind of reinvent themselves in that sense. You know what I mean? That's not something that's easy to do, man. And I commend you for that. It's super awesome. Because I
Appreciate that.
seen a lot of friends go down that road, and that I'm young, but it's still, that a lot of them haven't made it back. I have one that did, and he's super successful, probably my most successful friend, but it's
Yeah.
super awesome to kind of see those things come to fruition, and watch the fruits of your labor kind of turn to the fruit you're picking from the vine. It's super awesome, man.
Yeah.
But
So what's
did Bailey
interesting,
go
man,
into the illusion
I'll
burn the
tell
ship
you,
for you?
what's that?
Do you know where we got it from?
No.
All right, so Central American conquistador Hernan Cortez, he lands in Central America with his armada of ships. It could have been 5 ships, could have been 20. At that time, I wouldn't imagine it
Yep.
being more than 20 because they had to hand build all of them out of wood.
Right.
But he made his men get off on the beaches, disassemble his ships, and he burned them all and made them get all their supplies, whatever. And he said, "We're gonna die. We're gonna make it here. We're gonna die trying." And that's kind of the same illusion that we use in the small business world, or really in the entrepreneur space. And we want to always ask, what would it feel like to burn the ship?
That's a great question, man. So, as I shared before, I was already in a very vulnerable spot. And again, no resources, no money, new baby girl on the way, like, or actually, she was born at that point. And so it was like, my thinking was, if it gets any worse, I don't know that I'll ever make it out. Like, I'm giving my last deposit of hope and effort like into making this thing work, because I don't even know where I can go
Right.
from here. Like, and so it was like staying up late and working all the time. I mean, there's sacrifice, man, on something. When you burn the ship, you don't burn the ship and then go sit at the coffee shop and play on the
Right.
computer. Like, man, I gotta go all in, and it's all you think about, and you dream about it, and you talk about it, and you obsess over it, and you think about it. Like, it's heavy. But I think, to your point about your friend and kind of people who are struggling with addiction and who burn the ship, right? Whatever that means, um, you also have a hunger and a desire to do more. Like, I didn't want my kids to see what I saw. I didn't want to be the man that I was back then, right? So, like, for me, part of it was like, hey, this is a new beginning. And I know that I have gifts and talents inside of me that only I can express, that are unique to me. This is a mechanism or a vehicle that I can express those in this business. And so I'm going to pour my heart and soul into it. And we hope it works out, because if it doesn't, where do we go from here?
Right.
Right.
Right, man. That's super, super awesome, man. I appreciate you being on, man, and tell the people where to find you.
Yeah. So my name is Jay Soileau. So it's Jay. Last name is Soileau. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. My podcast is Conquer Me. And then you can go to conquermecoaching.com if you're interested in engaging with me with coaching. But yeah, I'd love to connect with anybody, man. I appreciate you guys and what you're doing. And I think your audience is really being well served. So.
Thank you very much, man. We very much appreciate it. We're going to put his links below. That way you guys can go find him. Jay is, if you sat here and listened to this whole interview, then you know this guy's got a story of one of its own, and is definitely here to help people, and he's here to serve. You know, as much as he's been served, he's going to help us out as well. Jay, I appreciate you very much, man, and burn the ship.
Awesome, brother. Thanks for having me.